And so, Jeremy, you put together this great and powerful, the great and all-powerful Genie as a Warlock subclass. Would you like to talk to me a little bit about the, I guess, the inspiration for that? Was it like the Unearthed Arcana was the thing that like pushed you into this, or?
So I am very interested in the design process of 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, right? I listened to a bunch of the D&D podcasts. I listened to a lot of the programs they have with Mike Morrells, Jeremy Crawford, and I watch a lot of Adam Coble. I learn a lot about game design by paying attention to these prolific game designers who design the games that I love and run the shows that I like to watch. And so maybe 2 years ago at this point, year and a half, 2 years, Mike Morrells, creative director of Dungeons and Dragons, who's kind of in charge of 5e overall, talked about how it would be really cool to have a Genie patron for a Warlock. And I thought, wow, that'd be really cool. Flash forward to about 2 or 3 months ago, where an Unearthed Arcana is released that has a noble Genie patron for the Warlock. The difference is when I read that, I thought, wow, this sucks. This doesn't feel like a Genie to me at all. This isn't, whoa, and mighty and powerful Genie.
I am the Genie of the Lamp! Is all I've ever wanted. Because I was on the same page. I actually did not hear that old thing, but I was kind of also floating in my mind for a long time that I just love Genies because, as Chillpan is pointing out, it pretty much made Aladdin. Yeah, I love Aladdin. And that's my primary and initial exposure to Genies, at least from my end, was through Aladdin. And so doing the things that Aladdin does is super appealing to me. And that is very much the direction it seems that you went, Jeremy.
And I believe, just to answer a question in chat, everybody was asking, what Unearthed Arcana am I talking about? It is Subclasses Part 1. I think it was the first Unearthed Arcana of 2020, so about two and a half months now. And I'm sorry, Chill Pandana. It's not that it was bad. All of the design in the Noble Genie subclass that was released in Subclasses Part 1 was good. The design was spot on. Even the balance was pretty reasonable. The problem for me is it lacked that flavor. I mean, going back to our rubric, right? It lacked that flavor. It didn't feel like the great and all-powerful Genie that I know and love, and I wanted it to be. And I feel like most people who would want to play that subclass would want it to be like that.
Certainly where I was kind of coming from.
Yeah, well,
as someone who wants to play a Genie Warlock, it sounds really fun to me. I don't like a lot of Warlocks either, because a lot of the time they feel a little bit too niche for me. But Genie is one that I could really get behind, where it feels right to me for a Genie to be a Warlock page. It's like so dead on for a patron to me, because like that's the Lord of Genies, is they are patrons in a lot of ways. So.
Absolutely. Now, a lot of questions in the chat, like, "What, dude? Why didn't you call it? You never had a friend like me." I wanted to draw some inspiration from obviously the movie Aladdin. It's what a lot of people think of when they think of Genies. But I didn't want it to just be Aladdin. I wanted it to have some of its own unique flair, and so in a way that you could kind of make it your own. But if you're looking at the screen right now and you're seeing it, you'll notice right on the front, I took a huge section here to write up some text about your relationship with your Genie. Because unlike every other, obviously the point of this Warlock subclass, right, is either a Genie has found you because you are some cosmic oddity, or you have found a Genie's lamp or done something for the Genie to owe you magical favors. And that is your Warlock pact with this Genie. This is how this Genie has become your patron. And something really important about this is a Genie, unlike maybe Asmodeus in the Nine Hells, if you want to play a Fiend Pact Warlock, a Genie is a lot more, like, achievable. I want to play in air. Yeah. You get level 6 spells, you can plane shift there. It's no problem. Can't just plane shift down to Nessus. Doesn't work like that.
You got to go through a whole bunch of them to get to that one.
So, like, this is a much more approachable and, like, potentially tangible NPC that could live in your world. And so I wanted to make sure I took the time here to describe, right, how you can set limits on the tangibility, how accessible is your Genie to your character, and what limits the Genie might have in terms of its power. And then I talk about how the powers the subclass gives you are the favors and the powers the Genie's giving you. right? You can't just ask your DM for more presence from your genie. But it's just a lot of background for if you wanted to play this class, these are some things to talk with your GM about. And I feel like a lot of things would be a lot better if they had a little bit of text like that.
Yeah, the Warlock Patron is much different from other power sets, kind of in the same way that Paladins have this idea that it is they're sticking to their convictions that gives them power. So there's kind of room for wiggle room and arbitration for the GM in the same way with the Warlock. It's like there's an actual tangible being that's giving you power, and it's maybe more so with the Genie, but all of them are like that. So it is a cool idea to have a little bit of extra details about how one might want to DM a Genie. So I think that was a cool idea.
Now, Pete, do we want to go through all of this first and then talk about the rubric, or do we want to just kind of jump back and forth a little bit between the two?
I think we can jump back and forth to a certain extent. One thing I will say going in is that this is something that we're doing this a little bit differently this time, because this is one that I've already seen this and read through all of this.
This is not a Lich's Lair. We've done some revision on this internally.
Yeah, so this is in a place right now where I think Jeremy did a fantastic job putting this together, and this is in a place where me and Jeremy kind of agree that this passes the rubric. This is, a 5 out of 5 on the rubric.
Yeah, it's close. Very close.
Yeah, and there was we'll probably talk about the there's one controversial feature on here. At least I think there's a lot of controversial.
Well, there are 2 controversial features.
3 really, but those features I think are great. There's one more mundane that's a little bit controversial, but I guess we can talk about that when we come to it. Jeremy, why don't you just start walking us through it?
Yeah, so as I said, you are a warlock and you have made a pact with an otherworldly patron who is a great and all-powerful genie. I have a little bit of pretext in here talking about the different types of genies. There's the Jinn from the elemental plane of air. There are the Ifrit from the elemental plane of fire, the Marid from the elemental plane of water, and so on and so forth. I know there are other types of genies in at least the Forgotten Realms, and I'm sure there are more in other settings. But just gave some ideas of who your kind of genie could be, right? Are they a merchant prince within the city of brass, right? In the realm of in the lands of fire? Are they perhaps a prince ruling over great fiefs of floating islands within the plane of air? Just to give you some idea of figuring out cognitively, who is your genie? We already talked a little bit about relationship with your genie. And then we start moving into the actual kind of features of it. So all warlocks, at this kind of first level, you're going to get 2 features. And one of those is going to be your expanded spell list. And what your expanded spell list is there are spells that as a warlock you can choose from. You don't automatically get these. These are non-warlock spells that you can choose to get. And when you look at the list I put together here right off the bat, it's a little funky. You might not immediately see why I would pick this over another. The spells at first level, Chromatic Orb and Identify. I feel like Chromatic Orb is flashy, right? Works with the different elements, so in that way it kind of ties into the elemental nature of genies. And then Identify, you want those cool magic items, man. Then at second level I picked Arcane Lock and Continual Flame. Arcane Lock because you got to protect your treasures. Continual Flame because that just feels like a wonder, right? It's a torch that will never burn out.
A never burning torch.
Right, that feels like a magical wonder that a genie would have, or at least be able to make on a whim. At third level, I picked Sending and Tiny Servant. Tiny Servant I really like. It's from what book?
I believe it's from
Xanathar's Guide to Every. Yeah. Where you can make any little object into a tiny little walkie around happy servant for you. And then Sending, I don't know why I picked Sending. That one is probably I'm least convicted about Sending of these third level spells, but it's not bad by any means.
I think there was one, I believe Sending was one that we've discussed and that you changed.
Yeah, because it was a last minute addition. But it's, it's fine. Nothing particularly wrong with it. At fourth level, Liamon's Secret Chest to hide your magical items, and Liamon's Private Sanctum because sometimes you just want some peace and quiet. And both of those felt very high and mighty powerful genie to me.
Agreed.
And then fifth level, Big B's Hand, come on. and teleportation circle, because you want to be able to teleport your Genie. Chilpandena, is this Jeremy made? Yes, it is absolutely made by me. Thank you. And it sounds very much the Disney princess archetype. Well, I'm going for it.
Yeah, I think that's very much the intent here. Is it's the dream that Aladdin created in every child's mind when they watched it about having a genie. Is I kind of think what the vibe here is.
V-Money, that's a really funky genie. The normal dude working their job. I guess to them, maybe they are. Anyway, one of the things... Sorry, go ahead, Pete.
I think a lot of these spells, I was going to say, are painted in the context of this first level feature. Mind if I go ahead and give this a read?
Yeah. Well, before we tie into that, one of the interesting things about these first level spells these spells that we gave them for their expanded spell list are they almost all have some sort of component cost. Identify requires a pearl worth 100 gold. Chromatic Orb has a 50 gold piece gem. Arcane Lock has some components, Kindle Flame. A lot of these have expensive material components, and that ties into the next core feature, which, Pete, you want to talk about now? The Genie's Vessel.
Yes. At first level, when you gain this feature, your patron provides you with a magical vessel. The vessel is a tiny object, distinct in its appearance. All genies recognize the symbolism of the vessel as being of your patron's influence. Additionally, the vessel can serve as a spellcasting focus for your Warlock spells. You may cast each spell on your Genie expanded spell list with a spell level less than or equal to your Pact Magic spell level once at its base level without expending a spell slot, even if the spell is not one of your spells known. A spell cast in this way cannot be cast again using this feature until you finish a long rest. Additionally, you ignore the somatic and material component requirements of a spell cast using this feature, even if a cost is indicated for a component, or if the component would otherwise be consumed by the casting of the spell.
Bada boom.
So this is Genie's Vessel. Sometimes for me at least, when I read something like that, and the text sometimes it's hard to parse it
to just take
in. Essentially what this amounts to is it allows you to cast every spell on your expanded spell list once a day on the free ski.
Assuming you have a high enough spell level for it.
Yes, obviously you don't get to start out with a free Bigby's hand. But
that would be very good.
That would be quite a level 1 feature. And this is, as it stands, still quite a level 1 feature. This is on the powerful side. I think we've talked about this before, but it's also very cool, and it gives you these little things that you can essentially wish for. Jeremy, I don't think we ever talked about this, but I love the flavor of you ignore the somatic and material. You do not ignore the verbals, because you do have to wish for it. Oh,
absolutely. And even beyond that, I think these are a lot of very infrequently used spells. Besides Chromatic Orb, like Arcane Lock, Continual Flame, Liamon's Secret Chest, those are not spells people use. Mordenkainen's Private Sanctum, these are very infrequently used abilities. And so this spell, this level 1 feature, right, that empowers you to use these abilities, I think is a very positive and unique kind of play style that I really liked with, that I really fell in love with when I was putting it together. But even beyond that, Pete was saying this is a very strong feature. The Genie Vessel is what we call a load-bearing feature when we're talking about design. Almost all of the power in this subclass is coming from this feature. And as we kind of go through the rest of the kind of things that you get for playing this Genie Warlock, you're going to start to see why. Additionally, on a more meta level, this gives you a bunch of effectively extra spell slots. They're very specific spell slots that you can use, but it fixes a big problem that a lot of Warlocks have with, I can't cast spells. Load-bearing, Chilpandena asks. Load-bearing means that it is a feature that carries most of the power mechanically and in the gameplay that the subclass has. Some of the other features that you're going to talk about later are what we call ribbons, the opposite of load-bearing. They're more flavorful features that aren't as directly impactful in gameplay.
And just to be clear, Chilpandena, 1 free spell. Actually, that is not what this does. This is...
This gives you a whole bunch of free spells.
At 9th level,
very specific free spells.
10 free, very niche spells. Which is, again, this is why we're saying this is a very powerful feature. But it's also definitely the most powerful feature on the class. And it scales in a way that usually...
Some might debate it. Some might not say that, but we'll talk about those as we get there.
Indeed. So the money is saying, why wouldn't I go 2 levels in Warlock and leave? Is it okay to give this a first level? It's specifically for packed magic spells. So you only gain...
Yeah. I mean, if you want to just get 1 free chromatic orb and identify a day, I guess you could do that.
Yeah, that's fine.
If that's like something that interests you, but that's not really that powerful. A level 1 spell, I don't know. That's not too scary to me, I don't think.
Yeah, it doesn't really sit in with multi-classing.
Yeah.
And Chill Pandana makes me want to post some homebrew in the workshop in the Discord right now, to be honest.
Ooh, do it.
Do that for sure.
I mean, that's the whole point of this.
If you have stuff you're working on, throw it in the workshop, and people will, have ideas and comments and stuff. Likewise, if you have stuff that you've already finished and polished, you can toss it right in completed works. And
I realize it's probably way too small on the screen for you guys. I'm going to zoom it in a little bit, so hopefully you can see it a little easier.
And we'll even, if you have something right now, even you're welcome to toss it up, and we'll try and get to it this evening to discuss a little bit here on the stream. But that's the first feature. It's a very kind of starts off with a bang. This Genie does with a lot of stuff that it can do here.
And it's a feature that's going to scale with it. And when we get to the 10th and 14th level features, you're going to realize why. So the next feature is called Larger Than Life. This was very much inspired by Aladdin. Of all of the features in this class, this one is the most Aladdin of them, in my opinion. By 6th level, your patron grants you a modicum of magical flair. As a bonus action, you may draw wisps of arcane power from your vessel, which surround you and grant you the following benefits for 1 minute. You are swathed in illusion, allowing you to alter your appearance as though under the effects of the Disguise Self spell. This effect is clearly magical, however, your true form cannot be discerned by non-magical means. You can modify any aspect of the illusion on your turn, no action required. So the idea is, right, Genie switching between all the forms, right? They're an old lady, and then they're, like a little devil or whatever. That's kind of the shtick here.
You get to become Prince Ali for a moment.
Exactly.
The next one was more defensive, which is actually pretty traditional for Warlocks as well. At 6th level, almost every Warlock gets some type of defensive feature, and this is that aspect for this. Your illusory form protects you from harm. For the duration, you gain the benefits of half cover against the first attack roll made against you on each turn. An attacker is immune to this effect if it doesn't rely on sight, as with blind sight, or can see through illusions, as with true sight. So you get this, essentially what it amounts to is plus 2 AC against the first attack against you each turn. So
it's really not that strong, but it's a little bit of defensive oomph.
Yeah, you were describing it as, what is it? Reverse multi-attack defense,
Yes.
which is kind of a good way of putting it. Maybe a little bit better than
if you're familiar with multi-attack defense, it is. And then the third little feature, you gain advantage on charisma performance or charisma intimidation checks, your choice. You can change which check you gain advantage with when you modify this illusion. Use that first feature to change how you look. You can decide whether you're going to gain advantage on charisma, on intimidation, or on performance. Really, this is very much a ribbon. Intimidation checks usually don't carry a lot of weight in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. Neither necessarily usually do performance. But this could be a lot of fun for some folks.
Yeah, it's a cool little utility option where if you're using it in a non-combat setting, you have something you can do with it if you're not necessarily fighting on a given day or something like that.
Yes, exactly. It gives it a little bit of out of combat fun. And that feels very Genie to me too. But this was very much my love letter to Aladdin, this feature. Coldspark was saying you can't see their true form and true sight seem to conflict each other. Yes. True sight is a magical effect, as far as I'm aware. It's not a natural ability, right? So that's kind of why I had non-magical means written. Now, if I'm incorrect in that assertion, you're right. There might need to be some adjustments made. But I'm pretty sure that's how that works, Coldspark. Let me know if I'm wrong. I have been known to be wrong on rare occasion.
Anybody,
Excuse me.
it's a natural ability on some creatures. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Some creatures have it innately, but there's definitely I feel like there's an implication a lot of the time that is supernatural, even though it is natural. Like it's
I mean, just because
a lich has it, but
doesn't mean it's not magical.
Yeah, I think is the flavor of that, but I guess you could make an argument. But maybe it's worth looking at the wording there.
A fair point. Maybe there needs to be some clarification there, but. Either way, once you use this feature, can't be used again until you finish a long rest. So you get this thing once, for a minute, you gain a little bit of defensive bonus, a little bit of flair, a little bit of pizzazz. Very Genie, in my opinion. And then, Pete, we haven't gone back to the rubric yet. So do you want to take a quick detour to the rubric? Or do you want to go through everything and then come back?
Oh, let's just go through everything and come back. Also, comment in chat. Rozzy was saying, finish your fighter subclass if you still have time to look at it after this. I saw that, Rozzy. I was looking over it. We have, after we're going through this, we're going through a whole bunch of stuff in the workshop. And yours is, I think, second in line on that. So after we're done with this, there's one thing in queue in front of you. So we'll definitely talk about that later this evening.
Yep, we're going to spend all the rest of the show after this, Genie, talking about the awesome stuff in the workshop. So the next feature is a 10th level ability, which this is my baby here. I love this feature.
Yeah, this is the one that I could tell was your heart was in it.
Pete, I know I just took most of the last one.
Take it.
This one, and you can take the 14th level because that one's your baby.
That one's actually kind of my child, yeah.
I wrote it, but you brain it. Starting at 10th level, your patron may deign to grant you use of its wondrous treasures. As an action, you may implore your patron for aid. Select an item from the wondrous gifts table and roll a percentile die. If the number you rolled is greater than or equal to the chosen item's corresponding number on the table, your patron humors your request, granting you the gift, which appears with a sudden poof of ethereal smoke in a location of your choice within 30 feet of you or on your person. If an item granted to you by your patron would require attunement, no creature other than you may attune to that item. Additionally, when the item appears, you can choose to instantly attune to it. If this would cause you to exceed the maximum number of items to which you can attune, your attunement to one non-cursed magical item of your choice ends. An item granted by this feature lasts until expended or destroyed, or until 7 days have passed, at which point it is recalled by your patron and disappears. If your patron grants your request, you cannot use this feature again for 7 days. Otherwise, you can use it again after you finish a long rest. Alternatively, you can regain the use of the feature by sacrificing non-magical treasure worth at least 10,000 gold pieces to your patron through a 1-minute ritual. This feature is ridiculous, Chill. You're right.
It is ridiculous.
And Pete, you want to read the wondrous items you can get?
Yeah. So here in order, if you roll a 5 or above, you can get a decanter of endless water. If you roll... and just again to summarize, because there's a lot to take in that feature.
This is like a divine intervention ability, is what this is.
Just to explain like how it works, you pick which one you're going for, and you can only get the one that you're going for. I'm interpreting that right, Jeremy?
Yes, you're absolutely correct. Okay. You pick which one you want to shoot for. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't.
And you only get to use this once a day. So there's a chance that this feature grants you nothing. Before people are worried about balance. So you can pretty much always guarantee that you have a decanter of endless water. If you roll a 10 or above, almost always. You roll a 10 or above, you can get a ring of water walking. You roll a 15 or above, you could get an ever-smoking bottle. 25, Staff of the Python, which anyone who doesn't know the Staff of the Python, it's a staff that turns into a big snake. It's a pretty cool one. Which, was that a Jafar thing? Is that why you picked
Yes, 100%. That's the only reason it's on the item.
Yeah. 40. The figurative wondrous power, the marble elephant on the subject of Aladdin. 50, a dancing sword. Nothing to do with Aladdin, really, but
these are all what I see as wondrous items a genie would have in their mighty treasures.
Yeah, same thing with Ring of Shooting Stars. There's something inherently cosmic about the genie. I mean, the Carpet of Flying, are you kidding me?
Yeah, of course that's on the list.
Yep. The Crystal Ball at 75. At 85, the Bowl of Commanding Water Elementals. So you can make a little water elemental.
I love that item.
That's a tough one. The Rod of Security at 90 is a really awesome choice. That's another one that people might not know, I think, because that's kind of your item.
For those who don't know what the Rod of Security is, as an action, you and any number of creatures you can see within a certain distance of you get teleported into a magical demiplane of your creation. It could be a tropical island, it could be a giant mansion realm, and you have like 200 magical servants to feed you and just pamper you while you're there. It's incredible. It's a very fun magical item. Would highly recommend using it in your campaigns.
And then last but not least, I'm glad you end up going with the Ring of Genie summoning.
Oh, yeah.
Because it feels so right. Meaning you get a personal genie. The idea being that it's a genie that's not your patron, but like a servant of your patron.
Yeah, it specifies targets a genie of your patron's retinue. And just to the note, the Ring of Genie summoning does not give you wishes. It just gets you a genie to fight for you and do your bidding. So you're not getting wishes out of that guy.
And one of the things I think that's clear enough for it, because the Ring of Genie summoning specifically summons. We were talking about genies. The reason for the use of the word genie is the neutral term for the 4 types of genie that appear in the monster manual. If you look at the heading in the monster manual, they're all under the tab of genie and that spelling. And then specifically the air elemental genie, which is the one that is the most Aladdin-y and the most like traditional genie, is that spelling of like jinn with the DJ.
Speaking of which, I should probably change the spelling on here.
So that's the reason for the genie.
But yeah, I love this very much. I like the reverse divine intervention. You want the Ring of Genie summoning, you got a 95% chance not to get it. But if you want to just try and you want to ask your genie every day, eventually you'll get one.
You'll roll a natural 20 one of these days.
But yeah, these are some just fun things. This actually I don't think is honestly that powerful a feature, to be honest. It's good. I'm not sure how powerful it actually is.
I think the answer to that question is, how good is a decanter of endless water?
Well, the thing that V-Money was saying, right, is I just tried the Ring of Genie something every day until I get it. And, that's definitely good. I mean, there's no question there. The Genie is a challenge rating 11 monster that you can summon with that. But
and if you do that, then statistically speaking, you would have a Genie a little less than a third of the time that you're playing, which...
Yeah, well, most of the reason is, if you try and do that, most of the time you don't have an 11th level feature. And that's why we can afford to do so much with this is your 11th level feature. This is one of your big 2 end game Warlock abilities.
Yeah, this is a great question from Raz. How long does the item last? The item lasts for 7 days. There's a hard cap on that. And then the other question is, does the previous gift disappear when you get another?
No, it does not. So if you offer that 10,000 gold piece sacrifice, you could technically have 2 of these, assuming you rolled high enough on each of them.
11th level feature. Oh, sorry, 10th level feature.
10th level, sorry.
Not 14th. The 14th level feature is also a doozy.
Yeah, so it's Rod of Security in Bartholomew's bag. I don't know if it is.
I don't think that it is.
And yeah, it's 10th level feature.
Because that's a really weird one, and that doesn't really work in the context of D&D time.
But I guess it's just a summary for this item, or at least for this level feature. For me, this is what having a Genie patron's all about. It's that flavor of, Genie, I would like a tensing sword to defeat my enemies, right? Genie, bring me a carpet of flying. It feels very whimsical, very, very great and powerful Genie is what I'm going for.
Nina Wang asks, what if I sell my wondrous gift for cash and secretly con the shops? You could do that with this.
They'll be furious after.
Yeah, you could swindle with this.
I mean, that's how you get assassins sent after you, when you auction off your Ring of Genie summoning and then run away.
Just see, you got 1 day left. I got 1 day left on this bad boy. Let's turn a profit. Hey, get enough gold to try it again.
Here's the thing. That sounds like a very, very fun campaign twist to me. But I suppose that is a valid consideration. The problem is no one else but you can attune to the item. So the buyer would be pretty pissed pretty quickly. Presumably.
I assume that wasn't the intent when you put that in.
That absolutely was the intent.
Exactly that.
It was twofold. That and to prevent you from, because the artificer has a problem of the artificer's best use is giving their features to their friends and not having fun with them themselves.
That was what I was figuring it was for, because that's a.
But I also didn't want that to happen here.
Worked out as a nice little.
How can you talk about the 14th level feature, the crown jewel of the Genie?
3 wishes is your 14th level feature. Some of you may have a good idea what it does, and you're right, it does what you think it does. By the time you have reached 14th level, you have earned the respect and gratitude of your patron Genie, who bestows upon you a gift of 3 wishes. Cosmic law dictates that a Genie can grant its wishes to a specific creature only once in that creature's existence. Thus, once all 3 of your wishes have been granted, you cannot regain the use of this feature by any means, including the wish spell. Your patron makes, which is also a nice way of putting in that you can't wish for more wishes.
Yes.
Your patron makes no attempt to subvert the intent of the wishes, granting them to the best of its ability based on your desired outcome by casting the wish spell. While little is beyond the reach of a great and all-powerful Genie, a Genie's wish cannot kill, cannot cause anyone to fall in love with anyone else, and cannot raise the dead. Furthermore, meddling in affairs of the heavens of comparable cosmic forces does not come without risk. The greater the wish that you ask, the greater the likelihood that something goes wrong. The DM has great latitude in ruling what occurs in such an instance that your wish exceeds the reasonable breadth of your patron's power.
Ivon, I'm glad you love it, because I love it too.
I do too.
You can't have a Genie subclass without wishes.
If you don't get to cast the wish spell and your whole thing is that your patron is a Genie at one point, why did you do the Genie thing?
Yep.
This is, in my mind, this is a necessary element for the flavor of the Genie. This feature is the only feature like this that if, like, for example, if this were printed right now, it would be the only feature ever printed that is
expendable. Goes away. It also means you get wishes at 14th level, which is 3 levels before every other spellcaster in the game. That's huge. That's very, very powerful. However, you only ever get 3 of them. So I don't know. I very much like this feature. I don't think it's actually that busted, although wishes can be very powerful. Like all homebrew, and this is something that we have the benefit, right, of this being homebrew content, or not being Wizards of the Coast content specifically. Even if this were published in an unofficial thing, what makes it great is every DM who would have this in their game would hopefully see this feature first, especially since we have the sidebar up at the top that just says, talk to your DM in lots of letters here, basically. So hopefully, I think that this is a very interesting ability. I very much like it.
Agreed.
It just feels so good.
2 things I want to point out in chat here. One, which is, I think was it Roger Twine that said it? Who pointed out the thing about knock? I can't remember where I saw it.
I also think it should open sesame knock at some early level.
That's a cool idea. Oh, there it is. Yes. That's a cool spell idea. I don't know how. Maybe like if it was to stack up against a continual flame, it might be the one to stack up against. But
perhaps
the one problem I have with
Arcane Lock would be a good duo. Actually,
that does make sense. The one thing about knock for me is it doesn't necessarily seem as obvious that's what it, like, I feel like not enough people would get that knock was meant to be open sesame when they looked at the spell knock, but it is a really cool idea. So it might even be cooler than continual flame.
I like continual flame a lot personally, but I can see it both ways. I see Blood Deuce is saying, I don't know, I think it's cute, but I don't like the idea of giving a 14th level feature that isn't reliable. Well, and that's exactly it, right? The 14th level feature isn't reliable. You only ever get to use it 3 times. The 10th level feature really isn't that reliable. There's a good chance you don't get the thing you need. Or you have to try way ahead of time, right, over a couple of days, and then you're stuck with something that hopefully will be useful. That is why we put so much power on that first level feature, right? It gives you 10 extra spell slots, effectively, on a Warlock.
And to make it clear, it gives you 8 really niche spell slots.
Yeah.
And then it gives you a chromatic orb, and then at 9th level, you get a free Bigby's hand, which is Bigby's hand.
Teleportation circle.
Teleportation circle's good, but it's like it's an out of combat kind of use spell. But like it has a minute casting time, so you're never going to use it in a combat situation other than maybe if you know someone's standing on a teleportation circle to like, I guess, get a jump. That'd be whack. You're basically never going to use it in a combat situation. I think Blood Deuce, from my perspective, the way that I view this 14th level feature is it realizes the dream of the Genie for me personally. And also, like, I think that your wish spell, just like imagine for Jafar, your wish spell could also be for something like unlimited cosmic power.
I wish to be a great and all-powerful Genie! And then you're the bad guy.
And then you become the bad guy and you go into a lamp, or you... Alternatively, your GM just grants you a cool feature that replaces 3 wishes in some way. There's definitely a lot of leeway to, if you don't like this feature, it feels, for that reason, it feels self-correcting to a certain extent.
It could be, yeah. I mean, that definitely hinges on your DM being very flexible with Homebrew.
Interpret the wish spell, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. I personally really like this feature. You're right. It's powerful, given a 14th level character 3 wishes. But, I mean, you're hitting those epic levels by 14. You're fighting some serious big bads. So,
and that's what I want out of my game. Like, when I'm hitting my capstone in my subclass, this is what I want, is something that's, like, memorable and is cool at that level. Because it's hard to impress a player at, like, 14th level. Like, the only other class that has a cool thing that's worthy of its capstone, I guess there's a couple. The Paladin ones are kind of cool. And the, of course, the Quivering Palm.
Quivering Palm is very
and this is as cool as Quivering Palm to me.
I agree. And, you know, I just can't, because I see Roger Try was saying you can replace the 3 wishes with Limited Wish after they're used. I assume Limited Wish, you're talking about the, like, list of examples in the wish spell. That it could be. And, you know, we could do something like that, but honestly, I like this the way it is. I wouldn't want it to be, you get 3 wishes, and then you get these, like, kind of crappy wishes that you can use once you use your 3 wishes. I want these to feel cosmic in their power, right? And that's my personal feel. I could see people feeling differently. This is not for everyone, and I think that's something that is just true about the subclass. This isn't for everyone.
Yeah, this is very much. I assume it's in yours too, but this is very much in my wheelhouse in the way that I like to play Dungeons and Dragons.
Absolutely, this is our love letter to Dungeons and Dragons. But anyway, that's the one. This is something, and to go back. Ignore this playtest feedback stuff, guys. It's not live yet.
To hop back and talk about this in the context of the rubric, this is something that I think passes the rubric. And there's some categories where I could definitely see people arguing against it. For me, for example, it passes playability, but like Blood Deuce was just pointing out, I could definitely see someone knocking playability for like, no, that's game breaking at 14. They can wish for anything and it'll ruin my campaign, and I don't want that in there. I could totally see someone feeling that way, or likewise arguing on that 10th level feature that the inconsistency of it makes it kind of hard to use and frustrating for a player. Like, I can I could see both of those cases argued, but I think, for the way I see it, there's enough juice in the early game that frustration is fun and okay.
Well, and it carries through, right? Those early game features scale with you in a way that will help to carry you through the higher levels.
Yeah, in particularly the Genie's Vessel.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely space for this. A Genie Patron is something that's almost like, why has it not been printed yet? That makes a lot of sense for the game. Flavorful, it's just oozing with flavor. Pete, I would give this 2 points for flavor.
I'm tempted.
Yeah.
If there ever was one, I'm tempted.
This is where part of our rubric allows a player, right, allows a design to get extra points for something, or rather to have, if you're so good in one place, to offset weaknesses elsewhere. And so the weaknesses in playability that have been brought up, potential weaknesses, right? That's kind of where I think it gets offset by how flavorful and rich this is. I mean, design-wise, I just really like the design. And overall, I actually think it's maybe even a little underpowered, but
it all comes down to which is a question. Can it be in a freebie? Yeah, absolutely. It can be in a freebie. It can be anything. One thing that might be worth mentioning on the Ring of Genie summoning, because it says it targets a genie from your patron's retinue. It might be worth saying that, like, because the Ring of Genie summoning summons specifically a djinn.
Yes, specifically a djinn. I did write in there, it summons a djinn.
Okay, so no matter what you get, you always get a djinn. Even if your patron is a Ifriti, you get a djinn.
Exactly, and I guess the idea is your patron, he's got this djinn who's just his bozo, who does what he wants.
Blood Deuce was saying it feels underpowered. Yeah, I can see that a little bit. It doesn't to me. But again, I can see the argument for it. The first level feature gives you most of what you're going to get for your reliable and consistent power. And I know that Blood Deuce, you also personally are a big advocate of reliable power. So I can definitely see where this wouldn't appeal in that regard. But
yeah, well, and I think an interesting note, right? There are classes in 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons that are underpowered, but are really beloved classes. They're things that people really, really like. One example is the Rogue, for example. The Rogue is a pretty underpowered class in 5e in terms of its combat capability, but it's got so much flavor and life to it, and it has a richness in its RP and its out-of-combat features that, for the people who like the Rogue, really hold that up. But anyway, yeah, I don't know. I really love this. I mean, there are things I could change on it, but at this point, the only feature I'd even consider changing is larger than life. I'm very happy with everything.
Yeah, else. that was the one for me before. That was maybe not exactly. And actually, it was very much improved. There was an earlier iteration.
Oh yeah, there were a couple of very bad iterations of that feature.
Anyway,
but it's totally trashing Warlock design conventions. I've taken the design conventions of Warlock and thrown them out the window. You have an expendable class feature.
Expendable class feature is fucking wild.
Yeah, the thing is, grant you a modicum. The thing is, with breaking convention, you can do it. You just have to know why you're doing it. And if you know why you're breaking established convention in design, and you have a good reason to do it, you can do it. And I mean, Wondrous Gifts destroys 10th level Warlock feature convention, but for me, it's so right. And Three Wishes absolutely just destroys all 5e class feature conventions in 5e, but it's so right for this subclass that I don't know. I mean, I'm personally
I think
very
it justifies
pleased.
too.
But I appreciate the thoughts. It's always good to bring that kind of stuff up
to be heard. Like, me and Jeremy have kind of, I think, in a lot of ways, grown what we like as players in similar ways. So this is something
evolved, learned.
Yes. So this is something that appeals to the way that you and I play together. So hearing other people's perspective on well, this wouldn't work in my game, or things like that, is really helpful. But as I was saying originally, this is something that we think passes the rubric, and if you disagree or if you agree, please continue to tell us that as we're kind of going through. But I think that's about it. Do you have any kind of closing thoughts on this, Genie?
I love the great and all powerful Genie.
Yeah, it came out really good.